So the wheels were turning, it was getting shopped around, and then of all people, Netflix purchased it. I'm sure for about 2.5 seconds, he was elated. And then...
You're tuned into Bite Sized and Nerdy with Amanda Teo. This is the podcast where we aim to serve you just a taste of the fandoms and franchises our guests are just simply obsessed with. Whether you're here to gush over your faves, or simply looking for something new, we're just so excited to have you. So sit back, relax, and let's get nerdy. In the animation industry, there are only a handful of names that stand out from our childhood. You might be thinking of big names like Disney, DreamWorks, Illumination, and Studio Ghibli. But what if I were to tell you there was one ex-Disney animator that not only became one of their biggest competitors, but had a huge impact on the children of the 80s and 90s? In this episode, my guest will introduce to you this living legend.
Hi, my name is Sean, and today we will be talking about one of my favorite people on Earth, animation legend, Donald Bluth.
But before you start hearing about Don Bluth's wild career, you gotta know how it starts.
Don Bluth is a traditionally trained animator who worked for Disney from 1972 to 1985, then went out on his own in 1986 to start his own animation studio. He was the man who directly put fear in the hearts of Disney after he left Disney. And his body of work, as he jokingly would say, is,
I like to make children scared and feel sad things, but then also let them know it's okay to feel that way.
Which is probably one of the best things you could say, which is probably why I adore him so, because he's very like, nah, kids have to feel really sad to know that there are good things in life. He worked on Sleeping Beauty, Winnie the Pooh, Robin Hood, Escape to Witch Mountain, Fox and the Hound. So this is where, the fine, don't listen to me, I'll do it my damn self era of Donald Bluth started. He was working on the Fox and the Hound. He had done a lot of animation for the character Widow Tweed, and there was a lot of heated arguments between Don Bluth and the rest of the animation team about things like creative control, style of animation, and training practices for Disney artists. So this discussion had gotten so heated that on his 42nd birthday in 1979, he resigned from Disney and started Don Bluth Productions, pretty much saying, God damn it, you're not going to listen, I'll just do it myself.
And the first movie he released?
The first film out of the gate is one of his most celebrated films. It's a first dark fantasy called The Secret of NIMH that was produced in 1982.
Aurora and Don Bluth Productions present a classic adventure in motion picture entertainment. I must tell you about NIMH. Look there.
It's a cult classic. It's not like he just sat there and dreamed up this whole story of The Secret of NIMH. His depiction of The Secret of NIMH is truly visually stunning and fascinating. That's all 100% how his mind works, how it interprets the world he sees. But it is based off a novel of a similar name called The Rats of NIMH. Now, what's funny, the word NIMH is an acronym for the National Institute of Mental Health. The NIMH research laboratory did horrific experiments on mice and recorded the psychological and sociological repercussions of their research. And these things were also reflected in both the novel and the animated film.
What was the reaction that it had on America? Because it was released mostly to Americans at the time.
So the initial reaction was that people felt, because there's this thing where animation is just for children. And as Don Bluth put it was, Secret of NIMH is for the whole family to watch. Because of the way it's laid out, something's going to happen. Your children are going to start feeling things. And as parents, you're going to have to explain a lot of these heavy topics that are part of life. And all these films go through this until you get to his final film.
He kind of forced the parents to have those uncomfortable conversations with their kids.
Yes. As a product of that era specifically, it had a profound effect on children of that time period. The first time that Disney was shaking in their boots was actually in 1989, where All Dogs Go to Heaven went directly up against The Little Mermaid.
Don Bluth, the acclaimed director of two of the most popular animated films of all time, An American Tale and The Land Before Time, now takes you on his most magical adventure ever. All dogs go to heaven. But only one dog ever came back.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi.
And usually The Little Mermaid's the top dog and blows everybody out of the water. But it did kind of have Disney question themselves when All Dogs Go to Heaven came out, and the difference in how much money the Little Mermaid made over it was negligible at best for the time period. So Disney was kind of like,
oh, we have a problem with one of our former employees now.
And then you had things like Anastasia, which was the #1 animated film until after it had closed from the box office. And then Disney came up with Pocahontas after the fact. But by then, it didn't matter because Anastasia had already taken over in 1997.
With such a powerhouse in the animation industry, where did it all go wrong? And why does it feel like Don Bluth's name is only seen in animation history?
It's funny because like the first film, The Secret of NIMH, employed 160 animators. And that particular Don Bluth film studio still went bankrupt in 1982. And I think some of that has to do with the way he approaches things from like a stubborn business perspective. You know, the whole I'm going to just do it my damn self thing is also kind of like a double-edged sword because you want to do it yourself because you have your reasons. But also it can very much bleed into you're not going to accept help from too many people because doing it yourself is really what's the cornerstone of this whole mantra that he's created. And a lot of those bankruptcies stem from that.
Or he's not cutting corners, which is a good thing, right? You don't want to cut corners, but it becomes very expensive. Do you know how much animations back then usually cost around up to?
I know for a TV series, it was like $24,000 an episode. That was then.
Not even modern day costs.
You know, that's another thing. Like his whole thing was doing things hand-drawn, even with his projects now. He didn't cut corners. You know, when he talked about seeing Snow White when he was a little kid, he talked about being right-brained and how artists perceive the world around them and how the movement and the color and all these things at 7 years old kept him spellbound. And he wanted to create what he was seeing. And that kind of instilled the whole, we're not going to cut corners because it has to look a certain way. It has to feel a certain way. People have to react authentically. Reusing cells, reusing backgrounds, it felt cheap.
Oh, really? He got mad at that?
Yeah, he was very much like, if a scene took place in the same room, fine. But if it took place somewhere else, you weren't going to use that background painting from 20 minutes ago in this completely new area. What is funny, though, is after All Dogs Go to Heaven, Don Bluth films started looking a little more like Disney films, and I think that was the cost-cutting measure in reality. He had to save money to continue doing what he was doing, and I think even now, by today's standards, like how you have computer-assisted animation using things like After Effects, but I think until he's like, okay, we're at that point where I have to relent, you will be drawing on paper, you will be using your pegboards, and you will be doing in-betweens and keyframes until I say otherwise.
So what was the nail in the coffin for Don Bluth's animation career? Is he still animating, or has he since moved on?
Don Bluth's exit from animation comes directly from Fox Animations forcing his hand to make a movie he had no interest in. This movie was called Titan AE.
20th Century Fox invites you to enter a universe without rules, without laws, without limits.
It's a sci-fi film. It has everything he hates. Animation shortcuts, it has 3D animation, and he just didn't like the way the story went. He was contractually obligated from a project he did years ago with them. The premise is a cool premise, but other than that, everything that could have went wrong with a Don Bluth film did. It was a colossal failure for Fox, and Don Bluth took that moment to leave the animation industry and work on Broadway for 15 years. And then in 2015, I guess he finally realized he's old. And he has one thing left that he wants to do, and that's a Dragon's Lair animated film. And he's been trying to get that through the door since coming back in 2015. So he went to Kickstarter. The Kickstarter kind of flopped, unfortunately. And Indiegogo was put in its place. The Indiegogo was phenomenally well funded. So the wheels were turning, it was getting shopped around. And then of all people, Netflix purchased it. I'm sure for about 2.5 seconds, he was elated. And then they turned around and said now that they own it, they are going to make a live-action Dragon's Lair film with Ryan Reynolds. Then it wasn't even, God damn it, I'm going to do it myself. It's going to be like, fuck it, I'm going to do it myself. And then he went and he made one final animation studio that he's been working at since Don Bluth Studios. And his goal is to middle finger Netflix and be like, I'm going to make this animated film before I die.
Now that you've gotten a taste for this legendary animator's legacy, where does Sean recommend you start?
Everyone should start with The Secret of NIMH because of how visually striking it is for a story about a mother trying to protect her family. It's been countless years, and I still remember certain scenes, certain colors used clear as day. The Secret of NIMH is almost as old as I am. And if you were to watch it, you'd notice things like the serious themes and things that they go through. They hold up better over time because there's things that are more grounded in reality. Things you could talk about, things you can feel. Where, again, like Disney films were always kind of twisted to be more flowery, saccharine. It's okay for kids to feel bad and be sad. That was his mantra. Kids are going to feel bad and be sad. And that's okay because there's still good in the world too.
And if you want to continue the conversation,
if you want to continue the conversation about Don Bluth, his work, his filmography, comment down below.
thanks for joining us on this episode of Bite Sized and Nerdy with Amanda Teo. Did you enjoy your happy helping of fun facts? Or do our guests have info that they need to retract? Make sure to let us know down in the comments. In the meantime, thanks for dropping by, and we can't wait to see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you didn't know, Bite Sized and Nerdy is one of our pilot podcast series in a documentary style focused on interviewing fans and their obsessions. If you're interested in hearing more, be sure to like and subscribe to see all of our future projects. In the meantime, we will be uploading a new podcast every Friday at 12 p.m. PDT. So until then, bye-bye!